I call him my son, and I mean that the way a man means it when he's been the one there for every fever, every meltdown, every morning he couldn't get his shoes tied because the laces felt wrong against his fingers. I mean it the way you mean something after 16 years of earning it. His name is Eli, and if you think you already know where this is going, I'm telling you right now, you don't. My wife and I got married in the spring of 2001 in a small church outside of Knoxville. She had a son from a brief relationship before me. He was 2 years old when we married, barely walking steady, with these enormous brown eyes that made him look like he was always slightly surprised by the world. Which, as it turned out, he kind of was. By the time Eli was 4, we knew something was different. Not wrong, I never used that word, not once, but different. He'd line up his toy cars in perfect color order across the hallway floor and scream if you moved a single one. He didn't look you in the eye when you talked to him. He had a way of rocking on the balls of his feet when he was thinking, like he was trying to keep himself balanced on the inside. The official diagnosis came when he was 5. Autism spectrum disorder, moderate severity. The pediatric specialist, a kind woman out of Vanderbilt who wore tortoise-shell glasses and spoke slowly and clearly, like she knew Eli might be in the room when she explained it, laid out what that meant, what it might look like, what we could expect. My wife cried on the way home. I kept both hands on the wheel and didn't say anything for a while, and then I said, "He's still Eli." She didn't answer. I thought she just needed time. She needed something else, apparently. By the time Eli was 6, she was gone. Not all at once. People rarely leave all at once. First it was girls' nights that ran late. Then a weekend with her college friend in Nashville. Then longer stretches. Then a Tuesday in March when I came home from my job at the county assessor's office and found a note on the kitchen counter and Eli sitting on the living room floor, lining up his cars. The note said she needed to find herself, that she loved Eli but she couldn't do this life, that she hoped I'd understand someday. I stood in the kitchen and read it twice. Then I folded it, put it in the junk drawer, and went and sat down on the floor next to Eli. "You hungry?" I asked him. He didn't look up. "Tuesday is spaghetti." "It is," I said. "I'll get started." That was the last time I thought about that note for a very long time. Here's what nobody tells you about raising a child with autism alone. It is the hardest thing you will ever do, and also somehow the most clarifying. Every morning has a structure. Eli needed that, and so I built it, and over time I found that I needed it too. Wake at 6. Breakfast at 6:30. Always the same rotation, Monday through Sunday, because surprises at breakfast caused problems that lasted until noon. School drop-off at 7:50. Work. Pick up at 3:15. Homework, which took patience I didn't know I had. Dinner at 6. Eli's bath at 7:30, which had to be exactly the right water temperature, which I learned to test with my elbow like you do for a baby. Lights out at 9. 16 years of that, more or less. His mother sent cards sometimes early on. Birthday cards, Christmas cards. Then those stopped too. Last I heard, she'd remarried and was living somewhere in Arizona. I didn't track her. There wasn't time, and honestly, there wasn't interest. What I was interested in was Eli. He was a strange and remarkable kid. He couldn't always find words when he needed them, especially under stress, but he could look at something, really look at it, in a way that I've never seen another person do. He'd study the grain of a piece of wood for 20 minutes. He'd watch the way light moved across a wall in the afternoon, and then go quiet for a long time in a way that I learned to recognize as processing, not absence. When he was 8, he found a set of watercolors in his classroom at school. His teacher called me that afternoon. "Mr. Carver," she said, "I want you to see what Eli made today." It was a painting of our front porch, the old oak at the edge of the yard, the morning light coming in sideways, and sitting on the porch rail catching the light my coffee mug, just a plain white mug. But in Eli's painting, it glowed like something important. I kept that painting. I framed it and hung it in the hallway. He never stopped painting after that. I bought him supplies when I could, which wasn't always easy on a county assessor's salary with no second income. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. There were years I drove a car with a cracked dashboard and a heater that worked only sometimes. There were years the property tax refund went straight to Eli's therapy copays. But I bought him paint. He worked on everything: watercolor, oil, eventually acrylic, and mixed media. His subject matter was always the same world, just seen from angles you didn't expect. A fire hydrant in winter, rendered with the kind of attention usually given to cathedrals. A grocery bag caught in a chain link fence, the plastic translucent in a certain light. our street after rain, his bedroom window at dusk. He didn't talk much about his paintings. He just made them. Stack after stack, rolled up in the corner of his room until I built him shelves. When he was 15, his occupational therapist suggested we look into a local arts program run out of the community college. Low key, no pressure, just a space for people of different abilities to make work and show it. I took Eli to the first session, sat in the back, and watched him walk into that room like he already knew exactly where he was going. He made friends there, not easy friendships. Eli doesn't do easy friendships, but real ones. A retired postman named something I only ever heard as Ox, who did charcoal portraits. A woman in her 40s with cerebral palsy who painted roosters. They'd sit at their tables and work in companionable silence, which suited Eli just fine. The program director, a man named Simon who wore paint-stained flannel shirts and had the calm energy of someone who decided not to be surprised by anything, started submitting Eli's work to juried shows without telling us. He called one evening to let me know Eli had been accepted to a regional exhibition in Chattanooga. Can I tell him? I asked. I thought you might want to, Simon said. I told Eli at dinner. He chewed for a moment. They want my work, he said. They do. He nodded and went back to his food. But later, washing dishes, I saw him smiling at the window over the sink. Not at anything in particular, just smiling. The Chattanooga show led to another in Atlanta. The Atlanta show led to a write-up in a regional arts magazine. The magazine piece led to a gallery in Nashville approaching us. I say us, I mean Eli. But Eli, at 17, still needed support for contracts and logistics and conversations with people he didn't know. I became informally his representative. I sat across from gallery owners and read the fine print. I asked the questions. Eli stood next to me and looked at whatever was on the walls and answered when spoken to, and otherwise stayed in his own world. The Nashville gallery sold 3 pieces in the first month. I remember calling my sister in Asheville to tell her. She cried a little. I did too, but after I hung up. By 18, Eli had a small but real following. By 19, the gallery was getting inquiries from collectors in New York and Chicago. Simon had connected us with an arts attorney, a sharp woman named Dana, who billed in 15-minute increments and had exactly 0 patience for vague language in contracts. And she became essential. I won't give you the exact number that changed everything. I'll say it was a private sale to a corporate art collection, brokered through the Nashville gallery when Eli was 20, and it had a 7-figure comma in it, and when Dana called to tell me I was standing in the kitchen making coffee, and I had to sit down on the floor. Eli was in his studio, the back bedroom we'd converted, with the north-facing window he'd specified because of the light. I went and stood in the doorway. Hey, I said. Hey, he said, not looking up. You sold the harbor piece. He was quiet a moment. The full amount? The full amount. He put down his brush. He turned around and looked at me. Okay, he said. Then he picked his brush back up. That was Eli. I should tell you who called me on a Wednesday morning in October, because that's where the story actually begins. It wasn't someone I expected. It was a man who identified himself as an attorney, a certain kind of careful, formal voice, like he was used to calls that didn't go easily. He said his name and his firm, and then he said he was representing my wife, my ex-wife, I said. A pause. Yes, your former spouse. She's reached out to us regarding, another pause. Regarding her son, I said. Yes, Eli. I set down my coffee mug. Outside, the oak tree was doing what it does in October, dropping leaves onto the driveway in a way that suggested more work ahead. What about him? I said. What came next was delivered in the measured tones of someone who had rehearsed it, or had delivered versions of it before. My ex-wife, and here I will call her what she was to me by that point, which was a stranger I'd once been married to, had concerns about Eli's financial situation, about who was managing his affairs, about whether the appropriate legal structures were in place to protect someone with Eli's particular challenges. I let him finish. Eli is 20 years old, I said. He has an attorney, he has an accountant, he has a financial advisor we've been working with for 2 years. And he has me. Of course, the man said. She simply wants to be part of. Where was she? I said. When he was 6 and I was learning how to manage a meltdown at 3 in the morning. Where was she when he was 12 and getting bullied so badly I had to change his school? Where was she when he was 15 and a gallery owner talked down to him and I had to sit in my car and breathe for 5 minutes before I could drive home? Where was she for any of it? The attorney was quiet. I'll need to consult with Eli and with our legal team, I said. Do not contact me again directly. I hung up. I stood in the kitchen for a while. Then I called Dana. She had filed for guardianship. That was the move. Not just a polite inquiry or a family reconciliation. My ex-wife had retained legal counsel and filed a petition to be named Eli's legal guardian on the grounds that as his biological mother, and given the nature of his autism diagnosis, she was uniquely positioned to act in his best interests. Dana read me the language over the phone. I could hear the paper in her voice, the flat, controlled fury of someone encountering a document that offends them professionally. She's arguing, Dana said, that the current arrangement, meaning you, an unmarried stepfather with no biological relationship, is insufficient protection for a young man with significant assets and a cognitive disability. He's not cognitively disabled, I said. I know that. The court will need to know that. What does Eli know? That's the question, isn't it? Dana said. I told him that evening after dinner. We were doing the dishes the way we always did, me washing, Eli drying, a routine that had started when he was 9 and requested it because he liked the predictability of it. Your mother has filed a legal petition, I said. She wants to become your guardian. Eli dried a plate, set it on the stack, picked up another one. Why, he said, not a question exactly. More like a word he was placing on the counter to look at. I think she wants access to your finances, I said, because I'd always been direct with Eli. He didn't do well with soft language. I think she saw the news about your work and she made a decision. He dried the next plate. The next one. What does Dana say? He said. Dana says we fight it. And you? I handed him the last mug, the white one, the one I'd had for 20 years, the one he'd put in his first painting. I say we fight it. Ellie dried the mug very carefully, turned it in his hands, set it in the rack. Okay, he said. The hearing was set for late January. Dana deposed me first, walked me through 16 years in a conference room with terrible lighting and coffee that tasted like it had been made the previous Tuesday. I told her everything. The note on the counter, the Tuesday spaghetti, the watercolors, the shows, the phone calls that didn't come, and the birthday cards that eventually stopped. I told her about the night when Eli was 13 and had a seizure, something that had happened twice in his life, stress-related, both times at night, and I was the one who held him until the EMTs got there, and then sat in the hospital waiting room until 4 in the morning. And the only person I called was my sister because there was no one else. Dana wrote things down. She asked follow-up questions with the precision of someone who's building a structure, not just gathering information. She's going to argue, Dana told me, that your relationship with Eli was informal, unofficial, that a biological parent has inherent rights that supersede a step-parent, particularly one who was never formally in the picture after the divorce. We were never officially divorced, I said. She left. I never filed. Dana looked up from her notes. She filed, she said, 18 months after she left. You would have received the paperwork. I probably received it, I said. I don't remember dealing with it. Dana put her pen down. You're telling me you may not have responded to divorce proceedings. I had a 6-year-old who needed breakfast and shoes and a specific routine and a dad who was present, I said. I had things on my mind. Dana looked at me for a long moment. Okay, she said. That's actually useful. Here's what I didn't know about Eli. I didn't know that for the past 4 months, since I'd first mentioned that his mother had been in contact through an attorney, he had been building something. He didn't tell me. He worked on it the way he worked on his paintings, quietly, methodically, with complete focus and no announcement. I only found out when Dana called me the week before the hearing. Ellie's been in touch with me, she said. I know we talked. No, she said. On his own, he's emailing me. He's been asking specific legal questions about guardianship criteria under Tennessee law. He wanted to know what evidence would be most relevant to the court's assessment. He asked me to explain the standard for determining whether a person with an autism diagnosis is capable of managing their own affairs. I didn't say anything. He also, Dana said, and there was something in her voice I hadn't heard before, a kind of careful respect, sent me a document last week. 31 pages. He called it a record of continuity. She explained it to me. What Eli had compiled on his own, over 4 months, was a documented history of our life together. Not emotional, not sentimental. Factual and precise, with dates and sources wherever he could find them. School attendance records, medical records, obtained through the patient portal he'd been managing himself since he turned 18. Gallery contracts, correspondence with Simon, show catalogs, financial records showing the trajectory of his income and the management structure Dana and the accountant had built. A log, I didn't know he'd been keeping this, of his own decision-making over the past 2 years. Every contract he'd reviewed, every financial decision he'd participated in, every communication with his gallery. And at the back, a section on me. School pickup records he'd found in old emails. A list, with dates, of every medical appointment I'd taken him to. 3 letters. From Simon, from his occupational therapist, from the arts attorney he'd worked with before Dana, attesting to the role I'd played and the quality of his care. And 1 page, handwritten, in his careful block letters, that said, "My father has been present for every significant event in my life. My mother has not. I am capable of determining which of these facts is relevant to my future. I am asking the court to trust that determination." I sat down when Dana read that to me, not on the floor this time, at the kitchen table. Outside, the January light was thin and gray, and the oak tree was bare, and my white coffee mug was sitting on the counter where I'd left it. I didn't cry. I came close. The hearing itself was in a courtroom downtown that smelled like old carpet and radiator heat. My ex-wife was there with her attorney, a man in an expensive suit who carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to winning. She looked older than I remembered. She was well-dressed. She didn't look at me when I came in, and she didn't look at Eli. Her attorney made his opening remarks. The argument was what Dana had predicted: a biological mother, concerned about the welfare of a vulnerable adult child, seeking to ensure appropriate oversight of his affairs and his person. The language was careful and sad-sounding. It was designed to make her look worried, not greedy. Dana presented our case in her flat, precise way. She submitted the documentary record. She submitted Eli's record of continuity. She submitted affidavits from Simon, from the occupational therapist, from the accountant, from the gallery. She submitted a letter from Eli's current therapist, a psychologist he'd been seeing for 3 years, affirming his capacity for self-directed decision-making within a supported structure. Her attorney cross-examined me. He was good. He asked about my employment, still at the assessor's office, not glamorous. He asked about my financial relationship with Eli. I'd accepted no money from him, a fact I could document. He asked about the support structure I'd built. Was it possible that what appeared to be a support structure was in fact a system of control? I looked at him. You want to know what 20 years of raising a child looks like when someone tries to weaponize it in a courtroom, I said. It looks like what's in that document Dana submitted. Every appointment, every show, every morning. I didn't keep those records to use them someday. I kept them because I was his father and I was paying attention. Her attorney moved on. Then the judge asked if Eli would like to address the court. Dana had mentioned this was possible. We had discussed it. Eli had said he wanted to. He stood up. He didn't look at his mother. He looked at the judge, which for Eli, who doesn't always make eye contact, was a deliberate choice I recognized. He spoke without notes. He said that he understood the legal question before the court. He said he'd read the relevant Tennessee statutes. He cited them by number, and he understood what the petitioner was arguing and why. He said he didn't dispute that his mother was his biological parent. He said that fact was not in dispute and had never been in dispute. What was in dispute, he said, was whether biological relationship alone constituted grounds for guardianship over a functioning adult. He said he'd like to address his own capacity directly. He described his financial management over the past 2 years. Specific figures, specific decisions. He described the structure he'd built with Dana and the accountant. He described his artistic practice and how he managed his relationships with galleries and collectors. His therapy. He spoke about the support network he'd chosen. He spoke for 11 minutes. The courtroom was very quiet. The radiator ticked. Somewhere outside, a truck went by. At one point, his mother's attorney started to interrupt. The judge held up a hand without looking at him. When Eli finished, the judge looked at him for a moment. "Mr. Carver," she said. She used my last name, which Eli had taken voluntarily at 16, a thing I don't talk about much because it makes it hard to finish sentences. "Thank you for that." Eli nodded, sat back down, put his hands flat on the table, the way he does when he's worked something out. The petition was denied. The judge's ruling, which Dana explained to me afterward in the courthouse corridor in her precise, unhurried way, found no grounds to impose guardianship on a functioning adult with documented capacity for self-direction and an established support structure of his own choosing. She noted the absence of any demonstrated involvement by the petitioner in the respondent's life and found it relevant to the assessment of the petitioner's stated concern for his welfare. The relevant section, Dana said, included language to the effect that biology is not by itself a basis for legal authority over another person's life. My ex-wife and her attorney left without speaking to us. Eli and I walked out of the courthouse into the January cold. The sky had cleared while we were inside, the way Tennessee winter skies sometimes do, and there was actual sun, thin and cold but present. Lunch, I said. It's Tuesday, he said. It is. We could get the soup place, he said. The one on Market Street. We could, I said. We walked. I didn't put my arm around him. Eli doesn't like unexpected physical contact, but I walked close, shoulder to shoulder, and he didn't move away, which for him is the same thing. We got the soup. We sat at the table by the window the way we always do. Eli ate methodically the way he eats everything. Outside, the street moved the way streets move on Tuesday lunch hours. People in coats, a bus, pigeons doing whatever pigeons do. You've been working on that document for 4 months, I said. More like 5, he said. I looked at him. Why didn't you tell me? He spooned his soup, thought about it. You would have helped, he said. I would have, I said. I wanted to see if I could do it myself, he said. I didn't say anything for a while. There wasn't much to say. Outside, the sun was doing what January sun does in Tennessee. Working hard, not getting very far, but staying at it. Here's what I've been thinking about since then. People have a way of deciding what someone is capable of before they've seen what that person can do. It happens to kids who learn differently. It happens to adults who process the world differently. It happens quietly, in the language people choose, in the assumptions built into legal documents, in the look on a gallery owner's face the first time he meets Eli, and figures he should probably just talk to me. Eli has painted 243 pieces that I know of. He has sold work to collectors in 11 states. He manages his own correspondence. He remembers every conversation he's ever had about his art, the questions, the comments, the specific light in specific rooms where specific pieces hung. He also can't always find words when he's overwhelmed. He needs his Tuesday spaghetti and his water temperature and his morning routine. He needs to know the plan before the day starts. There are things that are hard for him that aren't hard for other people. Both of these things are true at the same time. I learned that early on, not as a philosophy, just as fact, just as Eli. He gave me a painting last spring. He didn't make a thing of it, just left it propped against the kitchen counter one morning when I came down for coffee, leaning against the backsplash. No note, because Eli doesn't leave notes. It was the oak tree again, the front yard. The morning light coming in from the east the way it does in May, that particular gold that doesn't last long. And on the porch rail, catching the light, my white coffee mug. Same as the first one he ever made. Same composition, same light. Different hands. The hands of a 20-year-old man who had built a life I hadn't built for him, that I'd only tried to make space for. I picked up the painting. I looked at it for a long time. Then I poured my coffee and went out and sat on the porch in the morning, because it was Tuesday, and the light was doing what it does, and some things you just want to be present for.